Okay. Welcome. Good afternoon. I'm just enjoying some watered down apple cider for the working man. Yeah, I'm going through. All right, let me do this in steps. So, as has been usually been my modus modus operandi. But what if it's just one? Would it be modem operand? No, is operandi plural? I don't know. Mode of operations, right? So it'll be what? Modus operandum, because one operation. And it's not important. In however it is, I tend to kind of do something. I'll put it together, and oftentimes I'll push it out there because I'm just I like to get something done and throw it out there. And then I realize this could probably use edit a redo or something. I'm not happy with the formatting, or something else comes up, and then I go, okay, let me kind of work on it. So there's a little bit of that going on. Let me come over here because this page is not going to be particularly meaningful. This, what I'm calling the Doomed Prince of Porthamry, is a adventure of sorts that I put together. I say of sorts, and I'm going to go through that. If there was a stream on the main channel, I'll try to link to it on the show notes if I can remember. I did on this past Friday, which would be whatever the 19th, would that be? I'm not sure what date it is. Whatever day. The on that stream, I went through and I'm redoing again the sort of the referee's guide for Troupe, my game, particularly the Doomsday variant. Okay, hey Croco. So I went and I've been reforming it. I'm very happy with this kind of reformulation. And one of the things I added was this kind of rumor. So I went through and on the stream, I kind of went through that page and we rolled up some rumors, and it was fun. And I was talking about how you could use these rumors as kind of random events that are, or maybe called dynamic events that are happening in the world that also function as calls to adventure. So the party hears about something happening and they could choose to or not investigate whatever that is, and then hilarity, adventures, whatever ensue, right? And then, profit. When I'd done a couple of these, and then after the stream, next day or so, I was kind of drawing up some other ones. I realized that I could take these events, that there was kind of I could see this sort of a potential timeline emerging of taking these different events, which originally I think I'd done pretty much just, I'm trying to remember from the stream, maybe they were just kind of separate, or like, oh, this is happening over here, this is happening over here. And that's a totally fine way to use it. It might even be the primary way that I would use it. However, there seems to be this other way, which was sort of surfacing to me, was I could roll up some events as kind of a timeline. And so I kind of took that concept and I played around with some of the events, and I came up with this story. I think I might call it a tale in terms of it. And I'm going to get into it, of this kind of this Doom Prince of Porthamry. So the idea here is that you have these events that you've rolled up, or you've generated in other means, or you've just created out of whole cloth, out of your brain. And you think these are great. So you just kind of set up this timeline. Okay, event A happens, and sometime later, event B, C, D, whatever, right? Well, of course, you might be thinking, well, this feels very, I don't know, predetermined. It's go write a book. I mean, that's usually how it comes out when somebody has decided, like, all this stuff going on. But the concept here is that, in terms of this timeline, is that this is the timeline that will take place if nothing intercedes. So if there's one way I like to look at the party, the players, is that they're these kind of agents of chaos, not necessarily capital C chaos, maybe lowercase c chaos, or they're an unknown, right? So the waters of the world are still, everything's happening as it is ordered to happen, as it is ordained to happen. And then here comes the party, and they're that stone that gets thrown in, and suddenly all these ripples and everything is disturbed, and things that were supposed to go one way now go another way. I feel like that's how I kind of view things. This would be no different than if you were dicing it out, because that's essentially what we do with those rumors. Or dicing it out. So it's not even that I have a story in my brain so much as looking at a pattern in the stuff, which is kind of what using random tables and all that stuff is really, to me, is that the thing is, you're looking for the patterns, or I think it's kind of the beauty of the whole thing is you find these patterns and all this rolling on tables and whatnot that is more than the sum of just the randomness. It's more than just a jumble. It's like, no, there's this pattern in here that we can find. So I found this pattern, and I'm going with. So I think about, okay, here's this timeline of events that I've now constructed. And this is what will happen if the party doesn't show up. So in a way, if you're rolling up just stuff in your world, it's really no different than rolling up random events that are happening in your world. Oh, in the spring, oh, this happened. And then later on, this happens and this happens, right? All these things are going on. But in this case, we're putting it out kind of beforehand in some kind of format. And then we're opening this up to the party and saying, hey, do you want to do something here? Kind of or not. So here's what I came up with. And this is this doc. I put this up on, you can go to Patreon. There's the image of it. You can just look at it if you want a PDF. I have that kind of for some of the patrons who I always just want to shout out to my patrons. I feel like I don't do enough for patrons and whatnot, or, to shout out but I appreciate always. Let me just hide these things I don't need right now. I can kind of zoom in, move this over. Okay. So I did draw this map. I drew this. I kind of like this. It's not high artistry, but I feel like it kind of fits. And I put some runes in here, and then I just kind of just quickly threw this together, right? There's a river running through it, because usually there's a river running through it. I called the place Porthamry. I forget exactly how I came up with the name. And then I've got a village of Vanderwick, Portham, which is the kind of the manor. I suppose they call it Portham Castle, might be better. Something called Portham Rock. I put this hill over here, and then I realized I kind of wanted other location, so I just called it Woodsden Shrine. So I put it on top of this hill. And I called this the Hospice of the Daughters of Aostra. So I just came up with this goddess. I should probably keep track of these so I can start building up and reusing these, but that's what I got. Okay. This is just the backdrop. And really, other than place names, I didn't put a hex map in here, because this is really not about, this could really all be within one hex, really. Or maybe you'd say two. You could say, okay, if I was going to overlay, I might want to make the river sort of a boundary between hexes. So I might say, oh, it's this kind of, right, maybe the shrine area is kind of one hex, and these three things are another hex, and maybe this, it's, 6 of one, half dozen the other kind of thing. It doesn't matter. This scenario, if you will, this tale is not about travel, really. It's about stuff that's happening here. But I put them in here so I could use place names. And I think since having some place names, it's nice to be able to visualize, oh, where are these places? But it does not really matter. I mean, if I was to run this myself, I'd be running at Cathedral of the Mind, and I might just say, oh, it's northeast. But again, really, it doesn't matter, because it's not about navigating or really finding these things. It's just about, here are the spots where things are happening. Okay, let's get past that. So I came up with this kind of story. It's very heavily, what's the word? I guess influenced by kind of the Green Knight, which you'll see momentarily, and also just kind of, I think, the kind of things that come up, which is, family stripes, not the right word, but maybe it is. Family stuff, right? Family values, family things. So anyway, I have some people. So I put here the players on the side. The doomed prince, who is the name, the doomed prince, that titular prince. His name is Balvor. He's got 2 hit dice, or hero dice as I call them. He's got a young princeling about to come of age, stressed but optimistic, and driven by ambition, courageous but gluttonous. Crocker wants to know where the red, yellow, and blue knights, the knights of RGB, the knights of CMYK. Yeah, I feel like that was a probably got a Monty Python. There's some kind of Monty Python, deleted scene from the Holy Grail where they've got the RGB knights. Okay, so there's him. His father is Stigron, who is the king of Porthamry. He's cautious but joyful for the ceremony honoring his son. He's prudent but wrathful. Then I have this other character, Beorgund. Beorgund, a man in his prime, angry and competitive, driven by justice and vainglorious, the unacknowledged son of Stigron. So there's where we're going to get some of our family stuff from. And then Hilda, you could call her, priestess of Aostra. Presiding priest is the local cult of Aostra, long ago lover of Stigron and mother of Beorgund. I didn't put in any, attitude notes, so I'll have to do that. Croco likes their favorite night Pantone, 355C. Yeah, the Pantone Knights, that would be good. And then I have a note about Aostra, goddess of the dawn, spring, and renewal. And also this is kind of my Green Knight stand-in. I'm calling the Woodwoes Knight. Woodwoses are these kind of are basically, I'm calling them, I'm using the term land whites. So I'm using white instead of it being this very specific term. It comes from the Old English word Witta, which really just referred to any kind of supernatural being. So that's kind of what I'm using it for. So when I say it's a land wight, we're not thinking necessarily could be a wight in the sense of Fellowship of the Ring, from the Barrow, but that would be less a land wight and, well, I guess a land wight, because it's just basically a land here, meaning just kind of an area. So it's a wight, a spirit, or some kind of being that's sort of tied to a particular place. So I guess a Barrow wight would qualify as a type of land wight. And I guess some a little bit of information about that. So getting onto the story. So Balvor, who's the eldest son of Stigrin, is turning 16 at the end of the month. To celebrate the event, the king has planned a tournament and a feast for the end of the month. Croco asked, did I do any etymology lookup research for the names? I do. I tend to muck about with a lot of etymology stuff. Yeah. I don't always stick to it. I think Stigrin, I also have a hireling generator, and that it doesn't use any etymology. It really just munges up a bunch of words. So I will use that. So I think Stigrin and Balvor might be straight out, and maybe even Beorgund are kind of straight out of that hireling generator, but I will often look up those names. And in fact, Aostra is a combination of a couple of words. So April, spring, Easter comes from, I think it's kind of mysterious, but there's I think a Celtic, or I don't know if it's an Anglo-Saxon goddess, but there's definitely a goddess who was at one point with the Anglo-Saxons, whatever, who's goes by, I think there's a couple of names. One is Ostara, and I forget some of the other names. And so I kind of combined them into Aostra. So I kind of stole that. And Woodwoes is just an Old English, or an older Middle. I think Woodwoes comes from Middle English, for I think a spirit of the wild, spirit of the forest. But yes, I've been going into a lot of kind of Old English and a lot of etymology stuff. Let's see. Cargo says they did similarly vaguely Norse names recently, but mostly went with similar sounding words to existing names. I got you. I like going through the etymology, but I've also been doing things like these books like Daor Horde and things like that, which is an Old English bestiary, which I just started looking at, which is a lot of fun. And yeah, I really been digging it. I've just been digging more and more into those things. So that's why I've been using. And you'll see if I can finally get around to getting a little bestiary to go with this stuff, you're going to see a lot of kind of terms like wights for things, and Naas and things for like undead type stuff, coming from like Orc Naas, which shows up in Beowulf, things like that. Okay. So Stigrin is hosting a tournament and a feast at the end of the month for their eldest son, Balvor, or they think is their eldest son, because actually Beorgund is older and is the true eldest son, though he's not. I don't want to use terms like bastard, so I'm just using. I forget what I used. I think I said. Oh, I forget. I didn't say unclaimed. I had another. I might have, because there was another version of this, and I might have deleted it that had the. Unacknowledged. Yeah. Whoops, I forgot. I'm not in a PDF. Unacknowledged, I think, is a good word for that. So that's what I used. It is good for, Croco says, one fun thing to do is combining 2 or 3 words good for magic items. Yeah, and a lot of Old English words you'll find are like that. Like Woodwoes comes from like, wood woes, right? A lot of things like, you'll find names like, I forget, like Athelrad is like wise counsel. I don't know. There's all these different, you'll see these different terms, and you'll find these combined words like, let's see, what's one of them? Alfred is elf friend, Alf being Alf, and Fred from friend. Beowulf is itself one. There's tons of things like that. So it is definitely fun. In fact, the writer of this book, the author, they call this Daor Horde, which is itself, they created their own compound word, Daor, whereas where we get deer from in English, in modern English, but the word Daor just referred to any animal back in the day. So since this is a bestiary, a horde, like, pretty much spelled differently, but a horde, a trove, right, of animals, Daor Horde. Okay. So we got so the scene. So maybe the first event, and the reason why I'm kind of doing this sort of event, I'm trying to sort of capture what I went through on Friday with the kind of the events sort of part. But then also I think as I'm rewriting this, I'm gonna make more of a timeline, which is what I started to set up here. Was I literally have a arrow, and I think I'm gonna put put the major things on a timeline, and then ignore that. That's not going to be there, and then maybe put some on the side. I'm still figuring it out, but I'm part of what I'm doing here is trying to organize this maybe a little bit better. But I think I'm going to put it in more of a digest format as opposed to this one pager. But we'll see. Anyhow, okay. So we got a tournament and a feast that are going to be happening at the end of the month. So in terms of if we're looking at this, and this is why I'm going through it also, is because I really am curious for folks. One, well, my kind of questions to sort of out there that I'm trying to put out there is this enough information? Is it too loosey-goosey? Loosey-goosey is probably not the word. Is it too, I don't want to say it's, I've been using the term, I think when I talked about it in a couple of places, I put kind of vibes, right? And and I don't know if it's really even a vibes thing, because I'm not really writing this in kind of in really evocative language. It's kind of just stuff, but I'm also not giving a lot of details. Hey, there is a tournament. Okay. I don't give you a map of the tournament grounds. I'm not going into detail about all the things, but I'm just assuming that you as the referee, you have this idea like I do. If someone said, if I was running a game and the party's coming back to town and I roll some dice and oh, there's a tournament happening, I can run with that. Okay, there's a tournament. All right, well, in the green, they've set up the stands and they've got this and that, and there's probably some stalls, and I can just kind of run with it. But I don't know if that's, ultimately, I do think as a sort of as a creative stuff, you start with kind of what works for you, because I think that's what drives you. What drives me to make the stuff, say, I want to share what I like, and I think what works for me. So it's not necessarily that I would change it up, but at the same time, I want to meet people where they live and what they're doing. And if people, and if the consensus is nah, man, I need more, then I could work on adding more. Or if it's that's too much, obviously the other way could work too. Though there's so little here, I can't imagine anyone saying this is too much. Crocodile asks, am I going to add a timeline in case of no player interference? In effect, something for the referee to orient themselves on how things will generally go. That's kind of how this already is. So let me go through and read up. So here we have the coming of age, which I'm basically setting things up. So we're going to get a tournament of feast at the end of the month. And I make a point of highlighting the month because you get an idea of what the scale is. And I don't know if that's realistic for how long it takes to prepare for this stuff, but I'm going to say a month, which means that in your game, you could start to seed this in, and you could start later. You don't have to start with the king declares at the end of the month there will be a feast. Of course, you can just fast forward. If I was running this as a one shot, oh, hey, I'm playing a con game, or I'm running a con game, or running a game at a local gaming store, and I want to do this kind of scenario. I'm not going to start with, and on the first day of the month, you hear the trumpet sound, and the king says that at the end of this month, in 28 days or whatever, there's going to be a tournament. No, I wouldn't do that. But at the same time, if this is part of an ongoing campaign, I have my sandbox, let's say, then yeah, I would see this. If the party's doing other things that come to town, yeah, then maybe they do hear it. Or it happens a couple days later. If I'm doing some kind of time, I could pick a date and say, okay, this is when the announcement's made, right, like that. Okay. So we got that. And I do give a little bit on, hey, the tournament, it's gonna be held over 2 days. On the first day, you can do archery, wrestling, and a melee. I'm calling it, I don't know if there's a name for this. I don't know if they even did this, but I'm calling it a common melee. And basically those three things, anybody can enter. So this is a little bit of an implied invitation to the party. If they're interested in taking part in the tournament, well, depending on where they are in the world, but assuming they're not nobles or that they haven't been given titles or anything yet, then day one is where they're going to mostly be looking at archery, wrestling, or in a melee. On the second day is a joust and a grand melee. That's I just thought it was interesting. If you win the common melee, you can enter the grand melee, though it might be a lot, and if you're hurt or whatnot, but whatever. And then there's the joust, and that's for kind of the lords. This is the lordly, right? This is the sort of lords competition. And then at the end of that whole thing, they're having a feast. So then I have a thing here on the preparations, which I have taking about 3 weeks. Again, I don't know if it's realistic. And also would be that if I was running this as a game, like a lot of this is really left, and this is, I guess, part of it. A lot of this is really left over to referee interpretation, what they do with it. You could have adventure stuff can start in the preparation phase. And I don't list it here, but what I say about preparations, I say, as the grip of winter slackens on the lands, Kickstingerin begins the preparing of a tournament field in the open pasture outside of Vanderwick. So I get to reference a place, and then if you want to look, the field for the tourney, and I could probably put this on the map. Maybe I should. Will be somewhere in this area, right? Okay, great. That's where that is. Fine. And then they're constructing stuff and they're clearing, making space clear or flattened or whatever for pavilions and tents. And I just say it takes 3 weeks. And then folks are gathering to help with the construction, and I guess merchants, and I want to kind of rewrite that slightly because I want to add merchants and things maybe start to converge during this time frame. They're kind of converging on the village and the surroundings, kind of set up for it. This could be a source of adventure too. People are traveling from distances away. Maybe they need people. One particular adventuring hook might be that the party's is on kind of caravan duty. They are escorting a merchant on the road to get to Vanderwick for the tournament, and then of course they could spend time at the tournament. I don't make all this explicit. Maybe I should. I mean, at some point, you got to leave stuff up to people. Otherwise, you'll be writing a novel. And I just mean like a book as opposed to what I'm trying to do. But implied is, hey, if you want to have your party, your players want to get involved at this stage, they could. Either by their own, and of course there's shenanigans too, because there's all these people going here. There's potentially crime that could be taking place here. The party could try to prevent crimes. The party could try to perpetrate crimes. Whatever they're doing. But there's all this stuff going on over that. So that's for, I guess, so I say 3 weeks, and then basically at the end of the fourth week, and I'm doing kind of lunar months, so essentially 28-day month. I'm doing it, that kind of way. So fourth week, this is when the guests are showing up, right? So lords and their retinues, there's going to be contests and things popping up as just people with too much energy that they, they've been stewing all winter. And now they're kind of coming up. I thought about, and maybe I will add some events that could take place. Maybe I'll have events, especially if I have room when I move it to this digest format. Maybe I'll have some events and things that can, just some kind of little random things like, oh, someone got hurt, somebody got, killed, something got stolen. These kind of just general, really basic things. But again, they could be hooks. So these are other places where the party could show up, and maybe they're gambling, I'm sure, and other things. Again, I'm not listing all the stuff out, but whatever you think might be going on with these people, maybe the party can kind of insinuate themselves somewhere in there, or like I said, in the maybe the outcome of one of these, some of these events, something gets in. But I'm not, I'm really leaving it up to you. Otherwise, you can just, again, if you want, fast forward. And then to Crocco's point, it's like, yeah, unless things stop, unless things, the king is going to prepare, unless there's some kind of freak, whatever, the party decides to burn down the lists or do something else, well, yeah, then that's going to go. People are going to arrive. That's all that's going to happen. Then we have maybe the first kind of plot type event, which is that they're going to have kind of a holy rite is going to take place, a ritual that the cult of Aostra is going to perform, and they're doing it at that Portham Rock, which again is this thing up here, right? So I have it on the map. So yeah, I'll just call out that location in case you want it. Okay. And some crows come and fly, and it's an omen that basically equates to 3 runes. So here is where I'm tossing in the kind of rune. I've been talking about this sort of runes and doing runic oracles. And in fact, I found this book on runic oracles literally in my building. Seems a little bit too good to be true. And so you get this kind of runic thing. And then this is something that the party can mull over. But the thing I make it clear in terms of how it's perceived by other folks is it's taken as a bad sign. And so the runes are land or homeland, grave, and person. Seems to be not that great. And then Hilda, if they're watching him, she's not unhappy with it. She seems to have there's something, I said grim satisfaction. So she seems to be looking at a little bit different than other people. If you notice her, of course, if the party is not here to attend, then they will just hear about this after the fact, or they could be there because this is kind of the kickoff, if you will, or it's the night before the tournament and everyone's gathering to do this. And so, or not the night before, sorry, the morning of. So it's sort of yeah, it is really the kickoff of the tournament. So if the party is taking advantage, is there, then they would see it. If not, I'm sure word would spread that if they're not there and they're nearby, they're probably going to hear about it before that day is over. And of course, that's just day one of the tournament. And then the games really just get two statements, which is assuming nothing intervenes, then Beargund is going to win the common melee, but his mom is going to prevent him from entering the grand melee. I'm doing a lot of implied stuff here. Okay, so I'm not outright saying why she's preventing him, but she's telling him no. And this is something that, of course, you wouldn't know. But if the party is mucking around, they happen to be in his company, they happen to be skulking around, maybe they would get wind of that, and it might come out as a rumor, maybe. But it's really more for just sort of GM. It's really more referee facing, right? But, at your discretion, reveal it as you will. And then in the second day, I don't even have who wins the jousting, which I should probably put that in there. But Balvor wins the grand melee, and he is proclaimed champion of the games, which, regardless of who wins the joust, it kind of makes sense. It's his birthday. Or, it is his birthday. It's his coming of age. You can wink, wink, nudge, nudge, whether they took it easy on him. Again, I don't say anything about how this happened. Is he a great warrior? Is he not? I don't know. You can decide. I mean, he's got two hero dice. He's got 2 HD, so he's not a complete slouch, but he's not as strong as his father or his half brother. I guess maybe it would be. So we don't know. In any case, he's the champion, right? So look at this, isn't it great? And then at the feast. So then afterwards, right? So this is the evening of the second day of the feast, and this is when the Woodwoes Knight shows up and challenges the tournament's champion to a duel at the next dawn at the Woodstand Shrine. So over here. Okay. So we got that place name again. Great. So I just situate that. Okay. Now, here's why I leave it up to the GM. I originally had more to write here, and I took it out. And the reason why I took it out is I want to really leave it up to referees. I don't know. And look, you don't know whether it's, I say good or bad. Croco says he's a great warrior of my heart. Nice. I really want to leave it up to GM. So in this case, I decided to go. I had this whole write-up of these things happening, and more of this drama gets revealed, and I kind of ditched it. Maybe I'll put it back in if space, because it is some good family drama, but I also want to leave it more open for people to interpret it however they want to. So in this case, the Woodwoes Knight shows up and kind of in Green Knight fashion says, like, who will duel me? But not there. And I don't remember the different tales. I think of the movie a lot, which I really liked. And they do it right in the hall, but in this case, it's saying come to this shrine and do it. And it's a little bit different. So in this case, all right, the Woodwoes Knight shows up and says, I want to challenge the champion, and both the sons, though Beorgund, and I've left it up. Part of my write-up, my more extended write-up, has explicit that Stigrin doesn't know Beorgund is his son, and there's this whole bit that I had written. I'm not a whole bit. It's like a little extra detail, like the mom, Beorgund kind of takes it. It makes it more of a tragic. Maybe I'll write it up on the side because this is like it makes a nice family tragedy. Croco says the temptation to detail every possible scenario is very hard to resist sometimes. Yes, and this is not even every possible one. This is one. And maybe I'll write it up on the side. But in any case, the way I have it written here is, okay, the two men, both endeavor to accept the challenge. And I just put to the dismay of Stigrin and Hulda. Like, neither one want their kids taking on this. It becomes more clear, my other write-up, that I'm implying that the Woodwoes Knight is there because of Hilda, which is kind of my, that's my working theorem. I'm just letting out, that's my theory, okay? I'm letting it out there. Anybody can do this what they want, but my headcanon is that Hilda did some ritual off screen somewhere that brought the Woodwoes Knight up. Okay, and this is why she insists that Beorgund does not enter the grand melee, because she thinks, and there's a good chance that he would win, because he's at least as strong as, he's stronger and he's better than Balvor, and so there's a good chance that he wins the thing because she wants the other son, right? So her son clearly is what's the word I use again? Unacknowledged, right? Not in the line. I don't know how her and Stigrin fell out, but it probably wasn't good. and she's seen her son kind of toiling away in obscurity, and now the new son is about to kind of be, claim and whatever, and she's not here for it, right? So she's like, you know what, I'm gonna have this Woodwose night. He's gonna come, but I'm not gonna do it. I'm gonna do it in a way where I'm no one can hold me directly responsible. He's going to challenge the champion. And yeah, I have pretty good idea that the champion's going to be the son, but and no one attending is going to think that, and he was targeted, right? He's going to be like, oh, well, this is whatever. This stuff happens. Like, we're in the kind of Arthurian kind of fairy thing. This stuff does happen from time to time. So that's what she did. And so when her son won the other melee, she's like, there's no way you're entering that one. Like, I am forbidding you from doing it. But when the knight actually shows up, she did not anticipate that he might, because he's driven by justice and he's also vainglorious. He likes that. He wants to step up and do it. So both the sons step up to do it, and both the parents are unhappy for similar reasons. And then I just put it, if one of them accepts the challenge, I put journeys, they journey to the shrine and they're never seen again. So unlike in the sort of thing where the Green Knight kind of tests the sort of chivalry of the knight, then lets him go, like this one, I don't even, I leave it up. Who knows what happens? I just say they go to the shrine and they're never seen again, or at least they journey over there. Do they make it to the shrine? Does they get waylaid by bandits in the night? I don't know. That's up to you. And I also say, hey, if one of them accepts, because in a number of ways that the party could potentially get involved is if the party gets to the feast, which I think I put. Oh yeah, so one of the things is the party wants to get into the feast, then you have to be a lord. I'll put in a guest, or you have to win in the tournament. So you have some things you can, you can play with here to get the party to the feast. As Kroko says, clearly a dungeon waiting to be rescued. That's another thing to do, right? You could totally do that, right? So hey, all we know is in terms of the events is they are taken out there and they're never seen again. What happens to them? Where'd they go? But that's the end of this tale, right? We look at this tale as this series of events that could be, and I did put this note up here, if naught is changed, this shall surely come to pass, right? So hey, if nothing has changed, this is how it'll run. There'll be an announcement of a birthday, this great coming of age. They'll prepare for it. They'll have a tournament. They'll have this feast, and at this feast, one of these kids is going to go away and never come back. And you can roll dice if you want. You can play it up. I'm leaving it up to there because I think both of them are interesting, depending on what happens in the different relationships, and just whatever. And this is something you could, if you wanted to roll it out to be fair and the not tipping, putting your fingers on the scale kind of way, you could do that. If the party they seem to be really interacting with Hilda, or they really then you might make it that, oh yeah, I want Baragon because it just makes for more tension because she's going to come to the party and say, you got to rescue my boy or do what, whatever. There are a lot of ways to do that. And of course I left totally open to interpretation. Did the Woodwose Knight just show up? It was just fated to happen, just came. In my head canon, Hilda summoned the Woodwose Knight, did something to summon them. Maybe somebody else did. Is there somebody else out there that did it? Who knows? So that's kind of how I sort of envision this to kind of work. And then the party, and the idea would be that this wouldn't be the only thing going on, that you could have multiples of these things that are kind of running. Maybe they're staggered in the timeline. So this is happening over this month, and there's nothing that's happening over a week until the party could kind of dip their toes in or out. I think it's interesting. I think it's a fun little story. It feels very much like a fairy tale kind of deal. I think it's what's the word I'm looking for? It's a fun kind of tale to me. It's very lightweight. Okay, I got all this on a page. I could have written more, and I'm not only using half the page. I mean, if I was trying to jam all this on one page, I could have got all this white space up here, and I'm not really happy with this design. This map is kind of a funky size. It's not really big enough to take up the full width. It's because it's long. Maybe I should have gone with something wider. If I redraw it, maybe I'll draw it with the river having more of a meandering, so it just fits better. Or I figure out moving things around. I think in the digest version, it will probably flow a little bit better. I got plenty of room if I want to add more stuff. I don't really know if there's some more stuff I can add. If I wanted to add some other lords, I could do that. I could add some things about, kind of tables. One is the table of names. All right, maybe I'll do that. Maybe I'll add a table of names for different people they could come across. I could add some kind of wandering encounters, I guess. There might be one. What is it? The ready reference sheets have some great, they're kind of crazy, but they're also good sort of tables about that have kind of wandering encounters with sort of people, or they're mostly people, I think, in urban environments. And they could be, you insulted a noble and now they're a duel. There's some fun stuff you could have. I could add some of that in. Part of the thing, though, too, is I want to keep it. And I realized kind of as I was laying this out, or kind of after I laid it out, that it's very much in a similar format. I've only seen a screenshot of a couple of the myths from Mythic Bastionland, but it's in a very similar format. In fact, mine is much more wordier than the myths in Mythic Bastionland. But as I've looked at some of the screenshots that I've seen, and I was looking at this, I'm like, you know what? Like, how much do I need? People seem to be okay with the sort of vibesiness of that, and this is not as vibesy because I'm not giving you a lot, but I'm giving that these things are more kind of grounded, so you don't. And maybe I don't know if that makes it better or worse, actually, to think like, do you need, like I said, do you need, these are all the parts of a tournament. Do you need, like, here are the locations? I could put them in. But part of I think the appeal for me is that there is a simplicity here, that it's just, hey, this is, these are some things that are going on, kind of take them or leave them. Hey, take them if you want to get in here. And, you can get in here at any time, right? That's the thing. You can come in at any one of those. You can just tick off days. Okay, we got our game calendar. And all right, hey, you hear the thing, the call for artisans and laborers and everything was made. Check that box. Oh, it's 3 weeks. And you can just start, you're doing, whatever else is happening with the party. Check, 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 check. And then, people are starting to arrive, which then means that maybe you could get hired on as guards or whatever, or then check, and then deal through it. Carl, so I have some games detailed. No, I don't have any games detailed. I don't have. My system. I really don't feel like it really requires much. if you want to do a joust, for example, it's just I would just use a pretty simple check. I don't have. I think that. Well, Croc. I am inviting the players. I kind of say it specifically, assuming the party's not, again, doesn't have titles or anything where they could join the other ones that take part in the archery. There's archery, wrestling, and the melee, which you should feel free to enter. I do not give you rules on how to run those. The easiest way would probably do some kind of opposed check, which would just be, jousting. Oh, I have 3 hit die and I'm a warrior versus I'm not. And then, muck about with it however you want. So it's not that I don't want players to join. I'm just not trying to mechanically detail all those. Now, I could do it, but I haven't done, because I just figured you can do whatever system you want. Do you want to run the Grand Melee and run it with minis? It could be a whole session. Yeah, I do say what the games are, Croco. I have archery, wrestling, and a melee, which would just be like, literally a melee. Like teams, whole bunch of people in open field, and then beat the heck out of each other until there's one still standing. So yes, I do have those listed. I have them listed right there. And you could even add more if there's more you could think of. You could add them. And then the second day is a joust and a grand melee. Now, if the party is figures out some way to do it, which again I would leave up to GMs. Anyway, maybe they could join the joust. Maybe they could join the grand. Maybe they could figure out a way to get in the grand melee. There are, I don't mean it to be restrictive. I mean it more as like, hey, here's some things, but run it. It's a tournament, whatever you feel like. Like, I don't outline. I'll probably put a note in here about merchant stalls, but I don't outline any of that stuff. There will be people's food. There'll be merchant vendors and things like that. There'll be, people are going to use it as kind of a market day. So there'll be those kind of things there. I will put a note about that just because I do want people to, but I'm not going to go through, and for this is not my feeling anyway, to go through and like, here's a list of the 10 things that the garment vendor is going to have. I know some people love that stuff, but I do want to keep it fairly slim and trim. So if I was going to move it to the digest format, which is basically half a page, right? Something, do I even have one? Let's see. I know I have. Yeah, here we go. So like this printout I did of Escape, which is kind of the inside with some things I did. This is one letter page, right? So this is one digest. This is letter. So I think the max I would want to do with this is basically a front and back, right? So it would be 4 digest pages, but it would be 1 page printed both sides, something like that. Or I could even think of it maybe as a brochure. And this would be the kind of thing that would probably work as a brochure sort of dealio. Which might be another way I'll have to look at it, because maybe a brochure this might actually fit a kind of brochure type layout. But I'm being light on all the details because it's really just, I want to leave it kind of open-ended, not trying to do a whole bunch. Crocker says they didn't take printing into account for all this stuff. Well, I think digitally, if you are just, so here's what I would say, and I'm no great expert. However, if you want to, even digitally, oftentimes people want to print out their stuff. So I think you want to try to be cognizant of the format and the kind of things you need. So if you're going to print it and you're doing something like these kind of books, or, again, A4, A5, whatever, but something you're going to be kind of folding and printing, they don't have to be, but you'll end up with weird blank pages, or you'll have to have blank pages in I don't know if in every spot or at the end or whatever. You want them to be divisible by 4, because that's 1 full page, right? Because 1 page back to back, it's 4. It's 4, 1 page, which ends up being 2 half pages on 2 sides, is 4. And this just means it just makes it easy for people to print out if they want to. And then if you want to print out, either for your own usage, and I've been printing out this, I printed out myself. I have another one. I think it's here. Is it here? Oh, so yeah, I ended up printing out the Wilderness and the Dungeon Crawl separately. So I have that as its own thing. But somewhere is hold on a minute, it might be, let me see, is it here? Oh yeah. My kind of mystery one, Whispers in the Waste. I've got this printed. Did that myself. Super easy to bind and do all that. It's just, just need to fold it good and staple it in the middle. Staple it and fold over the staplers. I think it's just good as a creator because people will print your stuff out. And if you print it out, if you have it where it'll fit nicely, and I've been using letter pages. I know some people like A5 or A4, and it's pretty easy. I think it's also pretty inconsequential with all the software now to, if you'd say you print it, you have it as an A4, but someone's going to print it on letter. I think something like Acrobat or the different PDF readers is very easy for them to make it printable on letter-sized paper to adjust or expand or whatever. Excuse me. And then, of course, if you're doing the brochure thing, it's all about that, how you're folding it after you've printed it. But it's all there. And then the last thing I have, which I didn't mention, I think so far, is because in my game, it's all about earning favor. I just kind of have some notes about how you can earn favor. You earn favor with Stigron if you win stuff in the games, and if you keep Balvor from getting in trouble. You could earn favor from Hilda if you make sure that if Balvor accepts the challenge, and if you prevent it, that earns her disfavor, right? So you can get on her bad side, and because she, again, I'm sort of implying that she set this up. She definitely doesn't want. I could probably put in here about Beorgun. I should put a note about, if you protect Beorgun, and you make sure Balvor gets his. That would be one. And then Aostra, the goddess, if you take on the challenge, if, again, here I'm implying that as the player you're able to, you take on the challenge, if the players take on the challenge of the Woodwoes Knight, then, and again, you as the GM can decide what that means. Is it just a duel in the shrine? Is it like Krakow said? Is you thrown in a dungeon somewhere? Maybe that's if you lose the duel. Maybe you go into some kind of other realm. Who knows what happens? And I sort of leave that, right? I'm letting that be whatever you'd like it to be. And that's the whole document. So I can definitely add more stuff in here. I don't want to get crazy about adding too much stuff because I really like the idea of sort of giving you the bones and saying, hey man, here's the bones for this thing. And I think it also it's I think add something for other folks to consume. It's here's the bones, do with it what you will. Then as somebody who's making these, and presumably someone, if you're making them for yourself, is to kind of feel like, you know what, I could just kind of, if this were my own game, again, this would be enough. And if I needed, if they're like, oh, we want to go shopping, okay, I'll search up a table of garments or whatever. I'll find that if I need it, right? But like I said, it's kind of one of those things. I guess I'll have to see when I get another format. If I get another format, I have the space. It really depends on if I do it as a brochure type where you're doing like a trifold kind of thing, or if I do it as a digest. Because the one thing with the trifold, it's just that there's more folds. You just lose space, right? Because everywhere there's a fold, you have to have reasonable margins around the fold so that you don't want to be too tight up on the fold. So you're even though the space wise, you're looking like, well, it's the same amount of space. Like, well, if I'm running like this, I can have these really thin columns. I'm not an expert, but I'm guessing I don't want columns this narrow because if I fold this, there's a good chance I'm going to be folding it in too tight to one of these. So I want to have wider folds, which means each of these narrows, which might be okay. In this case, if I wasn't adding anything else and I had, say, this was on one fold and that gave me, I don't know, 6 more folds, I probably still have some room. And this probably would work better on a fold because this could be kind of, might need to make. I don't have a fold. I don't think I have a trifold. I'm going to look it up real quick because I could see what it looks like. Is it called a trifold? I'm calling it a trifold. Is it a trifold? Can I find an image? An image of the measurements is what I need. What's this? Okay, so here I found one. All right, it's saying it's not secure. Well, I don't want not secure, but can I just view the file? Just continue. I'm just viewing a file. There we go. Okay. I'll open this in something in a minute. Let me just get it set and we can see. Wait, did it download it or did it not download it? Yeah, okay, it did. Where are you? Here we go. There we go. Okay. So actually looking at this, it's actually not that bad. 1/8 of an inch. Oh, wait a minute. It doesn't say, you know what? This one doesn't have your interior cuts. It doesn't saying how. This is where we fold. On how wide are these? Oh, that's a bar. I thought, I thought this is not. Why did they? All right, so maybe that's not a good one. I thought it had internal. I mean, I guess if I was making something, I could overlay that, but I was just looking for something. I just wanted something that had some numbers attached to it. Oh, here's another one. Hold on a minute. Let's see. Let's see. Rest results, keep your text within a point. 25. Quarter of an inch from folds and edges. Doesn't say where the folds are. So here's another. Here's another one. Maybe this one's better. Anyway, you can see that if you're looking at it, if you made the fold marks invisible, you see this is a pretty good margin between columns. So you lose a little bit. You lose. That's really what I was kind of interested in the actual spacing, but really the thing that matters is, you're cutting these. You're basically cutting this in thirds, but then you got to put pretty good margin outside of each thing to do, and then you back and you put it front and back, and then you figure out it. The panels also, it's a weird thing. I don't love trifolds. I know people love these brochures kind of setups, and I get it when you're printing it. I think they're great when you're printing it. They can be fun, but as a PDF, I hate it because either you have to create a second version of the PDF that doesn't have the folding, or you have to, it just makes an annoying PDF because the PDF of those trifolds doesn't follow the flow of the document because the way you're folding it, it's funky. Whereas in kind of a digest type format like this, it follows. Like if I just print this out, the way you print this out is you just print out the pages, or should say print. You output the pages to PDF just in order, and then you tell Acrobat. I imagine most other PDF type things will do the same, but Acrobat's a good one. You just tell it, print it out as a booklet, and it will bookletize it for you and send it. Super easy. And then it's just one PDF, whether you're giving it to somebody physically or if you're giving it to someone digitally, and they can easily print one for themselves. Kind of super simple, which is why I kind of gravitated for it, because I remember that one time. Really the only time so far I've mucked around with that brochure format. I found it just kind of I found it annoying, and I just was thinking, like, why am I doing this? But I think there's no question it's kind of a popular form. But anyway, it's kind of into the weeds. Like I said, I'm sort of curious in the sort of feedback portion of this. I am definitely curious as to, is this enough? Is this not enough? What would people want more of? But I want to keep in mind, I want to keep it, like I said, 4 digest pages would be the max. One, so I could just fold front and back. Though I guess if I did it in the digest front and back, the front, it would really be 3 pages. No. Yeah, it would really be 3 pages, more or less, because 1 page would be the cover. In this case, the cover would be this plus the map, and then everything else would be on the rest. And I guess for something like this, the back would probably be, it might even be just 2 pages. And using the map, putting the map as kind of also as the cover image, cover would probably be good. I'll monkey with it. I will monkey with it. Maybe I'll even print one out. Though here at Studio A, my printer I don't think it does double-sided printing, so I can't truly print it out. So yeah, that's about it. I'm kind of happy with this. I think the things I like overall with just the rumor system, which is really more of a random event system, is I think how you can use them separately, see if the players bite on them. They could be one-time events, or you can look and chain them together, which is what I did here. Just took a few of them. In this case, I think it was kind of a tournament, an omen, and the most changed to, but I won about, I think, a murder. But there is kind of a murder here. It's just a little differently. But I just took those and I just think, like, how could maybe these go together? And I was like, what if? And it's just it's like another one of those ways of doing prep kind of thing. It's like, does it make more sense for this to come first or this? And you just got to play around, and you could probably order it in a bunch of ways. You could even do it as the random. You could order them as they come. You could order them, or they could be separate. But I like the idea you could use them in either way. Kako says layout is complicated. It can be. I mean, I think once you tend to get your kind of formats set up, I think it's far less. Like, I think the big part of it is, and I'm not I know enough of this stuff basically to be dangerous, right? I can lay out my stuff and I feel like it looks okay. Like in terms of the typography and the general things, I think this looks pretty clean. It looks pretty good. It's not I'm not gonna nominate myself for any Ennies on layout or anything like that, but I think it works pretty well. Once you get this kind of thing set up, then you could basically use a single template, which I've made now a couple of templates for Affinity Publisher, which is what I've been using, and you can just kind of use that. Oh, okay, these are my fonts I like, and this is whatever I like, and okay, and you can kind of fit things in. Getting started is obviously getting the stuff. I have over years. I've tons of fonts I've picked up from different sources. I spent some money on some fonts because I don't actually use it very much anymore. But the BX font, which ITC Souvenir, I think is the name, or at least that's one of the ones. It might be the one commercial one. And there's a bunch of knockoffs and different, I don't want to say knockoffs, different variants and things I think are cheaper. But I spent money on the official ITC from the foundry, from the actual foundry, ITC Souvenir. That one I spent some money on a long time ago. But once you have some of those, they're really useful because they look, oftentimes I think would get lost, and I'm no expert in this, but I've done a bunch of simple kind of layouts and things, but you'll learn to see it when sometimes you get some of the fonts that are free or cheaper that they don't, some circumstances you look at all of a sudden and go, oh, the spacing is weird, or the line heights are weird, or it doesn't have all the kind of glyphs I want. There's all kinds of weird stuff that can happen. And when you get the ones, and not all the free cheap ones are like this, but a fair amount of them are. If you go and you kind of spend a little time, maybe spend a little money, get lucky on something, right? You can get some of the ones that are better. Like, okay, it's like, man, this just works. It works. It's got everything I need. Bam. Krakow has a Greyhawk font. I think it's free. Yeah, there's tons of free ones. And I'm not saying there's anything wrong with them. But I'm saying sometimes I feel like one of the things you can do to set yourself apart, not even set yourself apart, but I think like it really, I think you test drive some of those fonts in a document, and you'll see, I think some of them just, I don't know, like, and sometimes it's also at the size you're using them, right? What font size, I don't know, there's all kinds of stuff like that. But once you kind of get that, and you got sort of like, here's my size, and here's my layout, here's my spacing, whatever, then you can more or less just kind of go. But in terms of content, like I said, I'm pretty happy with this. I want to read some actual Mystic Bastion land. I don't own it. I need to figure out how to do that, because I am curious to read about that. I'm curious if there are other examples of some very, I know, oftentimes, a lot of times, hex keys are very vibesy, right? Oh, there's just a thing happening in a weird place, and you kind of got to figure out, well, what does it mean? There's a dome of clear crystal, and inside is this kind of this thing, and it's like a whole wonderland in there, but it's only in a couple of sentences, and it's just like, now you got to figure out, draw the rest of the owlbear. It's like, what's inside all the stuff? I don't know, right? And I think that works on the hex crawl kind of level. So I'm not sure why it doesn't work here. It's just a key that's in space and time as opposed to just space, right? And maybe that's kind of how I need to look at that. These events are just like, they're like hex keys, but they're a space in time. Maybe that's the best way to look at it. Or I guess they're more like in time than in space. I mean, they have locations, but locations, I don't know, right? I mean, even a hex key is really a space in time, because it's really the first time you go in. Those things like in Wolves Upon the Coast, there's like, oh, there's a cat by the river. I mean, that cat is not always at the river 365. It just happens to be there the time, whatever time you walk into that hex, you pass by that river and you see that cat. And then after that, it's whatever you think is whatever. So I think maybe it's like that, but I guess it's like an adventure key. Maybe that's the way I should call it. Adventure keys. I'll have to remember that. That's a good term. Adventure keys. I like it. Croco says, I guess time events are less flexible than space events. Well, yeah, because the thing is with the let's say the cat by the river is it is guaranteed to be there when the first time you enter the hex, right? It's guaranteed to encounter the cat. Now, you could do that with this. all this being said, if you wanted to, you could have, in other words, this whole spiel, right? The Doom Prince of Porthamry, you could take this whole thing and put it on a hex key or something, whatever key, and have it trigger whenever you want. You could have this trigger the first time you could have a note, right? This area is part of some overall sandbox. And you could have a note that says, hey, the first time the party enters Porthamry, start the Doom Prince of Porthamry plotline. So that whatever time of year, whatever it is, that's what's happening. I mean, the tournament kind of doesn't work if everything's locked down in the winter, but outside of that, you could even, whatever, you can figure that out too. There's wizards who are changing the weather. I don't know. They've got some kind of indoors massive cavern where they hold their games. Who knows? Have some fun with it. So you could have this whole thing be more flex if you don't want to do it. But I also think that, if you're running it, look, if I had this purchased out and you bought this for a couple bucks and you were going to run it, you obviously want to put it in a space you're going to run it, right? And not just have it run in the background and then expire. If I'm doing them myself, I can have a bunch of these running and expire because they don't take much work to do, because until the party starts to show interest, I can really be even more bare bones than this. And the thing is, I could just have the first one. What's the first thing we hear? Oh, they're announcing a tournament. They're celebrating the sun's birthday with a tournament. Great. And if nothing happens, tournament had. Or I could do more events, right? There's a lot of ways you can kind of skin that cat so you can cut down on it. But yes, once you start the timeline, then you're getting kind of locked in. But you could still do it a different way if you wanted to. Like, hey, this, you could have some things, but yeah, you're kind of locked in at that point. But I know it is what it is. But you could definitely, I think, if you wanted to more or less decouple it from a specific start day, you could. All right, well, thanks for hanging out, Croco. Thanks for listening to my spiel about this. I'll be interested to get kind of feedback on what folks think about this. I might test drive this. I was going to do it now, but I have some other stuff to do, and I definitely don't have enough time to get this all set up. I might test drive this in a digest or even a brochure just to kind of see how it feels. And we'll see what kind of space I have, which might indicate if I put some other stuff in. But yeah, that's all, folks. Thanks for hanging out. Enjoy the rest of your day, night, whenever you end up watching or listening to this. Game on, and I'll talk to you later. Bye now.